You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds! Birds! Birds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got us some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young.
God, I love being a turtle!
The Turtle Dork.
Strike me down in anger and I'll always be with you, just like your father.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
Wife Dork.
Would you like to have a suckle on my zipple?
And I'm your host, Darren Smith.
Warm, warmer, disco.
The Disco Dork. Some for the homies and some for me. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast. Yay!
Hey, everybody.
A rare no Brad record. This never
I
happens.
know, right?
It's disorienting.
It is. We're going to have to work our way through this one.
He's been on every episode, I thought, hasn't he? Just
I think
about?
he has. I think
I'm not used to this.
You may have to edit my intro. You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Darren, Brian, and Lisa. Darren goes at the end.
I'm actually gonna have to use that.
Nope.
Because so Brad's on his way back. The reason why he's not here is because he and Indie Dork have been having a blast at the Chattanooga Film Festival in
That's
Tennessee.
right. Hanging with Dave Lawson from Rustic Pictures and all kinds of super cool filmmakers.
Yes. So he should be on the way back with great stories to share for us.
They have done like 10 interviews, all of which are going to be going up on FSR.
Yeah, I followed Indie Dork, and he's put up a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
So we're going to hold the fort down until his return. Brian, how was your week in Dork?
Very light, as usual. Not much to talk about. You know me, I just rewatch movies I've seen a million times, so that's pretty much what I did this week. I already talked to you about my week in Dork, which was the back-to-back watch of Star Wars Episode 7 and 8, The Last Jedi, because I haven't watched The Last Jedi since I got it on Blu-ray, and I've been waiting to watch it just so I have time to watch both of the films back-to-back. And because of some stuff with work, I've come into a lot of free time. It's another story for another day.
I'm so intrigued right now. Stop recording, Darren.
So with that free time, been doing some other stuff, but I also sat and watched The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi back to back. And we talked about this before. The Last Jedi has been getting such a lot of negative and mixed criticism, really not even with critics, but more so with fans and the fandom. And I just don't understand where a lot of that is coming from. And of course, when I saw it in theaters, I only saw the film once. And watching these films back to back was more so to really kind of solidify my own opinions about The Last Jedi and less The Force Awakens. I mean, I like The Force Awakens. The issues I had with that film, I still kind of have, but watching it back to back with The Last Jedi, it really informs you a lot more of the characters and the arc that's happening with a lot of those characters, specifically with Rey and Kylo Ren.
That's what makes it such a perfect sequel, because it elevates the material that came before.
Yeah, we talked about that with Caesar and the Planet of the Apes trilogy. It definitely does enhance the characters and the films overall. And watching this again, only for the second time since the theater, I found that with The Last Jedi, like everything that happens in this film just enhances the characters and really just kind of just propels them to where the next stage or the next the chapter in their story is going to go. And I don't know, it's just Rey's character, like we talked about this before, as far as her parentage and the fact that I think that it's the right decision that Rian Johnson made as far as like her coming from nowhere, because if she's tied to somebody in this universe, say whether it is, you know, an Obi-Wan or a Skywalker or Solo, then this is not just Earth. This is a universe. This is a galaxy, and you're basically, and we've heard this observation before. You're shrinking the universe. You're shrinking the galaxy if you make all of these people tied together. And the fact that she's force sensitive and she has she has the ability to use the Force, but she's not tied to a Skywalker. I think that makes her character that much more compelling to me, is the fact that she does come from nowhere. She is a junker. She is this person that's been forgotten about, but she can be that of course, like the one, we always hear the story of, the one, but she could be that person that brings balance to the Force, possibly. And I just find that idea intriguing. So I never really got why fans were just so up in arms. Again, I think it goes back to the whole fan theory culture that we have, where if the film doesn't follow my theory, then I got major issues with it. And when I'm sending death threats to people on Twitter, come on, man. But I don't know. But that's just one aspect of that film. But even going back in a lot of the criticism I had with The Last Jedi, which was that Rose and Finn's journey when they go to Canto Bight, watching it this second time, a lot of that stuff didn't really bother me as much. I still have issues with the pacing of that, but overall, I see what Rian Johnson was really trying to do with that subplot with those characters and how that leads into the end of that film and moving forward. So I don't know, man. It's just, I really enjoyed The Last Jedi a lot more watching it this time around.
Did you end up watching that documentary?
Not yet. I still need to watch that.
It's funny. Lisa and I were talking before we started recording about the drama that was going on with Rogue One and how Tony Gilroy's come out and he's made a statement regarding how much of the reshoots he had been involved with and rewrites. And it's interesting that hearing about that, but then looking at the controversial decisions that were made in The Last Jedi and how Disney, I guess, felt confidence in Rian Johnson to allow him to go through with killing off a legacy character in that regard, and some of the other decisions that he would go on to make to complete The Last Jedi. So this is an interesting thing and going on behind the scenes, and how unfortunately Rogue One had to go through a bunch of reshoots, and like Lisa was saying, like we'll never know what Gareth Edwards his original vision would be. But I guess he's taking it on the chin because he's a good sport, because he makes a cameo in The Last Jedi. Yeah.
He's in that final scene on Crate.
Yeah.
He's one of the soldiers there. So, I mean, I don't think there's any ill will. I mean, of course you have to do, I mean, we're seeing that with Solo now, and even with Lord and Miller. I mean, they're kind of having the good spirits about it as well. They're getting the EP credit, and they take it as a learning experience. But again, Kathleen Kennedy has a lot to shoulder with this whole franchise and this whole universe, and really trying to make these films the best and taking them into a direction that is familiar with fans, but also trying to really extend and do something different. And I think Rian Johnson was able to do something different. And again, we talk about the fans when they say they want something different, but then when they do something different, then they cry and bitch about it, and then they kind of want something that's more familiar. So it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Or maybe you can, I don't know. But I don't know, man. I like what he did with The Last Jedi.
I love what he did with The Last Jedi.
Yeah, and I'm getting excited about Solo. I mean, again, I don't know what that movie is going to be overall, but we were talking about it before. Just the team behind it, and again, Bradford Young's cinematography. Just looking at his cinematography from that teaser trailer, and him bringing in those elements that I've seen from some of his past work, like Arrival. I don't know, and like I said, just this being the first Star Wars story that's dealing with the legacy character like Han Solo. We're seeing the adventures of a young Han Solo. That's kind of exciting, you know. I mean, regardless of all the drama that happened behind the scenes, I think it's kind of exciting just to see a lot of the adventures of a young Han Solo. So I'm excited to see what that film is going to be.
I think it just comes down to it's a Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
we're gonna watch it regardless.
Exactly.
So how about we just let the movie happen to us? Why do we have to?
I know.
To nitpick it apart before it's even a thing yet.
Yeah, touche.
Sorry. So Darren, I'm just saying you can just edit it out, Brian.
Oh, his whole thing. Okay.
I don't know why I added
I'll
that.
do it.
Whatever.
All right. Is that all you got?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
All right. Wife Dork.
Yes.
How was your weekend, Dork?
My weekend dork has been great,
Yeah.
despite Brad being out of town. It allowed me to catch up on I binged a lot of Netflix stand-up.
Oh, nice.
Because a lot of it has dropped. Just as a courtesy, I won't even include this in the price of the podcast, but you can just skip Seth Rogen's hilarity for charity, or you can do what I did, take as much as you can, and then just fast forward to Sarah Silverman and John Mulaney, and then just peace out.
Yeah, I walked in on the conversation about that. I guess I just have to take your advice to skip that
You
one.
can just skip it. The new season of the stand-ups has dropped, so Netflix has actually been. It's funny. All of the like stand-up podcasts I listen to, they're all like going like, "God damn, who are they not giving a Netflix special to?" Like they're just rolling out cash left and right. But the stand-ups is like a bunch of like 30-minute specials, and I watched them all pretty much all in one day. So I can tell you, Gina Yashere, she's a London-born black comedian, super funny, loved her. Kyle Kinane does an amazing set. He opens with like, you know, for as apocalyptic and dystopian as it's getting, you know, he can't be all that worried because he continues to recycle. Like, you know, like, it can't be as doom and gloom as I say because, you know, like, I am washing out this can. He also does, like, an amazing bit about the KKK eating ethnic food, like, having a weakness for ethnic food. So fucking funny. And then, of course, Aparna Nancherla closes out that set. I actually have tickets to see her in the winter. I want to say she's either in October or November. I have tickets to her. I've got tickets to Maria Bamford. I've got tickets to Ben Schwartz and Thomas Middleditch in June. They're going to be at the Sixth and I. How fun is that? I have no idea what they're going to do, but I'm like so in love with Ben Schwartz. I think he's so fucking funny.
Oh, man.
So,
John Ralphio.
I know.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
And he does the Solo Bolo episodes on Comedy Bang Bang. Just him and Scott Aukerman like riffing and singing and just being so full of joy for like an hour. It's like the most beautiful thing. Like whenever those drop, it's like, it's Easter, you know, like I love it. So it's just awesome. But what I really want to talk about, see, this is how I sneak it in. I talk about like my Lisa bullshit for like 5 minutes, and then I'm like, now is my weekend dork. Now the show can begin. I saw Love, Simon.
Oh, nice.
This movie was so freaking sweet. I love movies about crushes. Like, I was raised on movies about crushes, you know, 10 Things I Hate About You, Drive Me Crazy, She's all of that. Like, I feel like crush movies are, like, so essential. Like, when you're, like, in, you know, middle school and you're, like, just kind of becoming interested, but you're just, like, not emotionally mature enough and clearly not old enough to really... So you can just, like, live vicariously through these crush movies about getting the girl and everything, you know. It's like, will they, won't they? But of course they will, because, you know, it's that kind of film. Yeah. And Love, Simon hits all of those buttons, which make me feel like super nostalgic. Okay. But also the idea that this is, you know, a movie about a little gay boy who is like in the closet and he's going through all of these emotions on top of going, okay, well, when will I be ready to come out? Yeah. You know, how will this change my life and my family? How will it change how my friends view me? Like, you know, that is so essential for, you know, little gay kids, but also like for, you know, everybody identifies with what it's like to be in love or have a secret or whatever. And I think that just a lot of kids can see themselves in these characters.
Yeah, it's a universal theme.
Exactly.
Everybody can, yeah.
So, so what the story's about is there's a closeted gay high school kid named Simon, and he reads an anonymous post on like a site where like it's like one of those where people go on there and just post their secrets, you know, anonymous secrets. Yeah. But it seems to be just like this high school. Like this high school uses this one board to like do these like anonymous posts. And there's an anonymous post from a kid who says, I'm gay, I'm in the closet, and it's like I'm on a Ferris wheel, so it's like one day I'm up and then the next day I'm down, and nobody knows the secret about me. So, Simon is like, holy shit, I'm also a gay kid. Yeah. So he reaches out to this kid via like an anonymous Gmail address, and they start having this relationship, talking about, my family is like this and my family is like that. And what, like, when do you think you'll come out? I don't know when I'm going to come out because of all of these reasons. And through that interaction, Simon starts getting a crush on this mystery man. And so he starts projecting on all of these boys at his high school. Like, well, could it be this kid? Could it be that kid? And so, and so it's just like this kind of like little mystery. Like he has this crush and he doesn't know who this person could be. And this person doesn't know who he is. So it's anonymous on both sides.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's like that little intrigue. And then, later, this other kid uses the computer after Simon, and Simon accidentally left his anonymous Gmail open, and this kid gets like screen caps of his emails, and he threatens to take him out of the closet unless he hooks him up with one of his female friends. And so then all of a sudden, this other toxic party is like getting in there and causing him to manipulate his friends. So that he can, because he's afraid that if these emails blow up, not only will he be pushed out of the closet, but this other kid will too, and he might lose this crush. He might lose this opportunity with this other kid at his school. And so that's really what the story is about. But I like, it hits some of those same tropes, those romantic comedy tropes, but it's like extraordinarily well done. It is so funny. And really, really sweet. The entire last third of the movie, I'm like totally verklempt. Like I was sitting there next to my Lindsay, friend of the podcast,
hey,
Decree of Freya on Twitter. Like I was just like, I was like, like we're both like all choked up, just so moved. It was so beautiful. So there are some familiar faces in this movie. This movie is like exceptionally well cast. So the parents are played by Jennifer Garner and Josh Duhamel.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So,
I remember seeing them in the trailer.
So Jennifer Gardner, her character is like this, like she's like way liberal. She's a psychologist, so she is completely 100% like prepared to, Sherpa her child through this transition. Yeah. But at the same time, like, when you're coming out of the closet, not only are you saying, okay, well, the future you may have envisioned for me is going to be different, but also you're saying, I'm thinking about sex. I'm thinking about this kind of sex. You know what I mean? Which no kid wants to do. Yeah. Like, like in the original trailers, like way back when they were doing like the, like, what if straight kids had to come out?
Was that in the movie or something that was just in the trailer?
There was a major vomit scene in the movie. So I left. So if that did happen, it happened like in that little window. So it may have happened, it may not. Gotcha. It was definitely referenced. Okay. But like, like nobody wants to go up to their parents and go like, today's the day. Today's the day I'm starting to think about sex. You know what I mean? But like when you come out of the closet, that's inevitably like entangled in that. Where straight kids can just kind of wade into that. Like my parents still don't know if I'm having sex or not. So in terms of that, he's like not ready to come out to his mom. Yeah. His dad is like a super jockey dude. And so his dad is always like making jokes. Like when he walks into his room unannounced, he's like, what are you doing? Masturbating to hot chicks with jugs and stuff. And, like Simon's like, hey, yeah, dad. Or like, his dad will point to somebody on TV and go like, oh, doesn't that guy just look gay? He just seems gay to me. Doesn't he seem gay? And so like along the path, he's just been saying all of these insensitive things where, like Simon...
He's not making it easy for Simon.
Yeah, Simon, like on one hand knows that they're jokes, but on the other and knows that his father's not like that. But on the other hand, you know, they're
Still
hurt.
gotta hurt.
It's hurtful.
Yeah.
So that makes it difficult. One of the friends is actually Alexandra Shipp, who is Michaela in Tragedy Girls.
Yeah.
I am so in love with her. She is so
She's
funny.
awesome.
She's
So
good in the movie?
she's wonderful. She
Yeah.
plays a kind of new friend in his friend circle. She just moved there from DC.
Yeah.
And she, you know, and she quickly fell in with Simon and like this girl who had been his like childhood friend since they were little. But she's an interesting character because you know, she has secrets of her own of why she moved there senior year and you know, trying to like deal with like the emotions of having to deal with this move so that they can kind of bond on that level.
Yeah.
Also, she's like kind of like this undetermined like force in his life, you know, where it's just like, you know, I know that she would be cool with it. Whereas if I come out to another friend who's known me longer, it's just more complicated, you know. Then also, I wrote down why do I have such sloppy handwriting? I want to say this name correctly because I really enjoy this actor. Kynan Lonsdale plays Graham.
He's
Wally West. He's Wally West.
Yeah.
He plays another kid at Simon's school who's like kind of a cool kid, and so he, you know, he's actually the kid's house who when they have the house party and the horrible vomit scene, it's his house.
Yeah.
But he's still lovely in the movie. And then there is.
I want to say he's actually gay in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's lovely. I didn't want to
Yeah.
spoil it. But
Oh,
he's also
sorry.
gay in the movie.
Oh, sorry.
Then there's Jorge Lendeborg, who plays another friend, Nick, but he is Spencer in Brigsby Bear.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all of these people I've seen in these kind of cool, you know, like Brigsby Bear is like a cool niche indie film.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yay. So it's all of these people who have not been the main people in anything I've seen.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Alexandra Shipp, you could argue that, you know, like, you know, the other girl was kind of more of the main girl. I don't know. In Tragedy
Yeah.
Girls. So, like, it's all of these cool people from other films, and now they're, like, the center of attention.
That's
it's kind
cool.
of cool. It was just nice to see them. There's also Natasha Rothwell plays the drama teacher, Miss Albright, and she's just I just wanted to give her a shout out because that character's so funny. She's like one of those drama teachers where she had like some kind of like dream for herself, and now she's like teaching high school, and they're doing a cabaret of all shows, and she just does not see it coming together, and she's like, what have I done with my life? And there's like this one scene where the kids are bullying Simon, and she really goes to bat with Simon for Simon, and you know, pulls these kids, you know, away, and she steals their they're using a Bluetooth speaker, and she steals the Bluetooth speaker. She's like, I'm gonna sell it and get my tubes tied. It's so fucking funny. I love it. It's just funny. So I just like, to me, like, I love that now, like, representation for all different kinds of people and all different kinds of lives is like, you know, this center of attention cinematically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there is a reason why, like, this first, you know, teen, like, mainstream teen drama is a white male. You know, like, let's like lead least offensive as possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, to me, I think the most important thing is that it's kind of generic. Anybody can kind of put themselves in his place, and that it's really, really good.
Okay.
So I really found it really sweet. I found it really heartwarming. And, I loved it. So I recommend it. Unlike Seth Rogen's Hilarity for Charity.
Yeah, don't watch that.
Not funny.
All right. For my weekend dork, similar to Lisa and I Love Simon, I saw Blockers.
Love Simon, not I Love Simon.
Love Simon.
I'm sure you could find it. Or I Love Simon, where it's just like an island of just gay boys kissing. I would watch the fuck out of that movie.
I didn't see that movie. I did see Blockers, though. And similar to Love Simon, how you have the crush movie tropes and how it's turned on its ear by having the lead be a gay boy instead of a boy having crushing on a girl, or vice versa. Blockers takes the the teen prom night, oh, we got to get laid tropes, and turns it on its ear by having it not be the group of horny boys who are, yo, tonight's the night, me and Brian, we're going to do it, we're going to get laid, let's have a sex pact, let's lose our virginity tonight. Instead of it being boys, it's the girls, and how their parents react to that when it's not a spoiler that their parents find out that they're making this sex pact on their prom night. So it's the parents trying to ruin their prom night, trying to stop this from happening. So they give chase while the kids are out having the night of their lives.
So is this movie mostly the parents, or
it's an equal amount of both, which was surprising. The parents are John Cena, Leslie Mann, Judd Apatow's wife. She was also in Knocked Up, and she's been in a bunch of his movies, but it's her. And then the guy, I don't remember this. What's the dude's name? He was in Suicide Squad.
Ike Barinholtz.
Yeah, that dude.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
He was great. And so in one of the three, so the three girls, there are three main girls who are making this sex pact. And another way that this kind of how it kind of connects to Love, Simon, or how it's similar, is that instead of these three girls saying, "Yo, I'm gonna get that boy," and another girl saying, "I want to sleep with this boy," and then the third girl saying, "I want to sleep with this boy," one of the girls is she's gay. She's gay, and she hasn't come out to her two female friends yet. So and they're pointing at two boys, and she has this girl that she's crushing on, and so her story and her journey is her coming out with herself and to her friends. Her dad already knows.
Oh God!
And it's awesome because her dad is the guy in the trailer who seems like the most irresponsible, like the crazy one.
Oh gosh,
that's her father, and so they have a relationship where like he already knows. So he's not when the two other parents are like, you know what, they're gonna have a sex pact. Let's go ruin their night. He's like, no, you're not gonna ruin their night, because if you ruin their night, you're gonna ruin my daughter's night. I'm not worried about her because she's not even going to Africa. Like, so don't ruin her night. So he's tagging along to try to stop the other parents, and then that goes wherever. So I thought that was really interesting, in how in having that discussion about, well, what's the difference between a dude going out on prom night and wanting to do that, and a girl going out on prom night and wanting to do that.
A girl can get pregnant
as a parent.
Most girls, some girls, depends on their activity. Clearly,
well, the difference being in the view of the parents, like, why is it okay if a boy goes out to do it, and why shouldn't you have that talk of, hey, young man, don't go out
violating
and have sex
people
and have sex and get
consent
someone pregnant.
Is very important.
Yeah, and that's another consent is another thing that's talked about and touched on in the movie too.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that reminds me of it's similar to what you were talking about with Love, Simon, and also like Lisa. Now that I got that out of the way, what my real week in Dork is.
Before you move on, one thing that I found interesting about Love, Simon is like this idea of like after he came out, he just had this niggling thing in his head going like, well, did you know? Could you tell? Could you tell that I was gay? Like, could you see through my act? Yeah. And like, this is the conversation with Alexandra Shipp in the car. With his mom was like, well, I could tell that you had a secret. I could tell that you were not like the open, carefree kid that you were when you were small. Yeah. But like Alexandra Shipp's character, she's like, well, do you want me to be surprised? Like, is that what you want? Yeah. And I do think that is like this interesting, like, psychological thing with being in the closet. This idea of like, well, at least was I succeeding at hiding, like, for all of this time that I spent, like, keeping this secret, like, could you tell? So, like, how did she feel, like, when, not to get too spoilery, but when she found out that her dad knew, like, that she was gay, like, how did that make her feel?
I'm trying to remember if she also knew that her father knew. So
she had come out to her father, or
she didn't really come out. She didn't come out to him. I don't think she came out to him, but I think she knew he knew, and so it really focused on her coming out to herself and then to her two friends. That was the main thing. It wasn't. I don't think they really delved too much into whether or not she had told her father or whatever. But yeah, so go see that film. It's enjoyable.
I've looked up on kidsinmind.com. This movie is also not VF. It says that here. It says 3 teen boys.
Oh no! Oh my gosh! Yeah, it is not. Yeah. There's a limo scene. Okay, that's it.
Yeah. So when they're in the limo, just close your eyes.
Yeah.
With Love, Simon, if you're also an emetophobe like myself and you do not like seeing V in movies, I left. When they started playing beer pong, I don't know if it was beer pong. I feel like it had another name. Yeah. I'm not a big drinker.
They were playing a drinking game.
They were playing some kind of ping pong drinking game that was not beer pong. There was different shapes. It was very confusing. When they were playing that game, I just left and I set a timer for 5 minutes and then I came back and it was gone.
Yeah.
So
the segment in Blockers is when the parents are chasing these kids in the limo. The kids don't even know the parents are behind them. So it lasts about 2 to 3 minutes.
Don't even look it up on Kids in Mind because even the description is mildly triggering.
It's rough. It's rough. So I'll leave that and say that I like Lisa, life got in the way, and I didn't get to the theater. I've been slumming it lately. I
got to the theater. I saw Love, Simon and A Quiet Place.
Well, I wasn't finished. I didn't get to the theater as much as I would like to have.
Oh, okay.
I only got to go like
true.
3 times this week.
Yeah.
I also saw A Quiet Place, which we'll talk about. But, a promise is a promise. So I saw Isle of Dogs today.
Yay!
Yeah. And I got some conflicted feelings about that film. On the one hand, everything Lisa said, if you haven't listened to the episode where Lisa talks about Isle of Dogs and her Weekend Dork, you should check that out. 'Cause everything Lisa said was true. Like that, the movie is gorgeous. It's a technical and creative marvel. The details in the film with the creations of the characters and animation are what sell the world, and it was a really engaging film and an engaging story. All of that is all true. So watching the film in the discussion that it's online, it's readily available online about cultural appropriation and things like that. Before going into the film, I didn't have that conversation with myself. That wasn't even really on my radar. It wasn't an issue. I was just in love with the fact that it's another Wes Anderson film, and then it's stop motion animation. I like his other films, of course, and Fantastic Mr. Fox, his other stop motion animation film, is a great film. So I was just going in with the hype and excitement of another stop motion Wes Anderson film that looks more intricately detailed and a larger world. They're outside of they're not on a farm. They're out on an island, and then there's a city. And so I was really excited. So I go in there and I'm watching it, and my thoughts on the American actors providing the voices for the dogs. Some people it may not be an issue. The audience that I saw the film with, and I saw it on a Sunday, like at 11:55, and that was a damn near packed house. Like there were kids and adults in there, so it was a pretty packed house, which is impressive, and I'm glad that the film is has the audience there. But my experience with that audience was not what I was expecting. So in the film, and Lisa talked about this, when Japanese are speaking, there's either no subtitles, depending on who's speaking or when, or there are subtitles, or there is a translator telling you what is being spoken, what's being said. And my feelings about this and what I'm about to say stem, I think, directly from the fact that I'm half Japanese and half African American. So I just want to preface with that. The scenes where there weren't any subtitles or any translations and there was someone just speaking Japanese, because of the way the Japanese speak, especially when they're emotional or they're trying to convey like anger or disdain or whatever, they have a particular way of speaking and enunciating. And with the audience, when that would happen from time to time, whenever that would happen, like there were people in the audience who thought that was funny and who laughed. And I found that hurtful to me because, I mean, to me, I don't see anything funny with that. It's no different than if I was to get upset and angry and now I'm using my upset voice. It's the same thing. I sound different than when I'm talking now, normally and calm. It's just a difference in emotion in what I'm conveying. And to me, listening to a Japanese person speak, because I've been doing that for 42 years of my life, well, 41 so far, I'll be 42 in August. I lose track. Because I've been doing it for almost 42 years of my life, to me, it's no different than the difference between, Brian being calm and Brian being angry. So when that would happen, that kind of hurt the fact that the audience found that was funny. And then looking at the voice cast and the cast is huge, and you touched upon it when you talked about it, Lisa. You got George Clooney, Bryan Cranston, friggin' Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum, and Scarlett Johansson, and hearing all of these voices, it's great. I will not lie and say that when Jeff Goldblum spoke, a smile did not come on my face, or when Bill Murray first spoke for his character. I'd be lying if I said a smile didn't come on my face and, oh yeah, that's Bill Murray. But outside of that, I honestly don't see the value in having them speak for those characters, those dogs, versus having a Japanese person
because they're Japanese dogs.
Because they're now, if it had been explained that maybe like the exchange student Tracy, Nutmeg was her dog. Right. And so she's an exchange student from Ohio. So it would make sense that maybe Nutmeg spoke English and was voiced by Scarlett Johansson because originally she's from Ohio and she came with her exchange student master. That's fine. But if these other dogs, their masters were Japanese, to me...
But the dogs aren't actually speaking English. They're speaking barks.
They aren't.
And the barks are being translated.
Right. So when the dogs, so when the movie translates the dog bark, it's translated by an American actor.
Right.
And for me, I don't understand why it couldn't have been translated by a Japanese American actor.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's some type of Japanese accent in their English. I just feel like if you're representing this particular culture and you're putting so much detail and effort into the world, and I don't just mean the set design and the buildings and things like that. There was so much beautiful artwork when they would use stills to convey.
Speaking of dogs.
Perfect timing.
That's their neighbors.
Oh, I thought you pressed the button on your phone. Oh, okay.
That's Champ.
Okay. Hey,
special
Champ.
guest dog Dork.
Shout out to Champ. But I don't know. So I part of me feels like it's because Wes Anderson is known for his stock of actors that he works with, and that's fine. But I don't know. I just have conflicted feelings about that. Now, that being said, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the look of the film. I had fun with it. I just had those 2 points of contention in regards to watching it. But I mean, it's a technical marvel. I'm looking at certain things, and there's just something. I don't know. There's a whimsy to it. And there's so. There's
a whimsy to it, but it's dark. It's like dark-ass kids film.
It's very dark. When there's a first scuffle and the dog says, "Oh, by the way, I think he chewed your ear off," and freaking ears on the ground. I was like, "Oh shit!" And Sia wasn't with me today because I had to come directly here. But I was thinking "Oh man, maybe that was rough." But then when they meet Harvey Keitel's dog, and he looks like Harvey Dent. He's like Two-Face dog. He's like half his hair is shaved off his face, and he's got surgery marks where you marked your surgery site on his face. I'm like, "Oh, ooh." Because there were certain dogs who were they were experimented on, and he was one of those dogs. So he looked worse for wear. So there was some rough imagery in there. But
what did you think of the surgery scene?
Oh, that was awesome. There's a bird's eye view of a kidney transplant, and there were kids in the audience, and I was specifically looking at them when they were watching the sequence to see if it would be too much for them. And I mean, they took it like a champ. So I was like, all right, you like it, I love it. And so, yeah, but Wes Anderson, judging by the audience that I saw the film with, and I'm speaking specifically about the kids in the audience, he has, with the film, found the balance of, the light and the dark. and to where there's not too much of either.
And the kids in my audience loved it.
Yeah, and they loved it. They loved the film as well. So I think he succeeded in making a really good kids film, but also a film that adults can enjoy as well, like Fantastic Mr. Fox. So yeah, like that was my week in Dork. I do want to talk about 2 trailers really quick. One was the trailer for Upgrade, which is a trailer that Brian did a trailer reaction to. You can check that out on YouTube. I had no idea that this movie existed. I saw an article pop up on my feed on Facebook talking about the trailer, and it just seemed like a VOD title or a low budget title that would maybe debut on Shudder or something like that. But I ended up watching that trailer and being overwhelmingly surprised. It's directed by Lee Wanell, who is responsible for the Saw franchise, also Insidious. He's actually in the Insidious franchise. He's one of the ghost hunters that work with the old lady. And he wrote and directed this film, and it's badass. It is one of my most anticipated films of the summer. It comes out June 1st. This guy he's a paraplegic. He gets paralyzed. His wife gets killed. This corporation, this guy offers him this microchip that he implants in the back of his neck that gives him the ability to walk again. But that microchip has an AI, a sentient AI in it. So it's like a Siri, like a male voice Siri. And so it's within this one person, there are 2 consciousnesses. There's the AI, and then there's him. And so when activated, when given permission, the AI can take over this man's body while the guy's still conscious. And
that sounds like a glitch to me.
It's a glitch. It's a glitch,
Yeah,
and
no.
it gets pretty out of hand, and it's freaking awesome. So I'm looking forward. If you haven't seen that trailer, check it out. Maybe if you don't want it spoiled for you, don't watch the Red Band trailer because they show a lot. But it was not on my radar, but it is now. Another trailer I saw.
That sounds like an upgraded version of the 1984 classic "All of Me."
Yes.
Starring Steve Martin
Yes.
and Lily Tomlin. Let's see
Yes.
how many weeks I can bring up that fucking film.
Yes. And then the last trailer is for Melissa McCarthy's new movie, Can You Forgive Me, I think.
Oh,
Which
I heard about that one.
It's based on a true story.
Yeah.
Apparently, there was this author, and she wasn't finding any traction with her books and her output. And then, from my understanding, she was taking these letters written by these famous people, and then she was changing them. She was kind of plagiarizing them and then selling them, and she became popular and made money off that. And then that went sour for her. But the thing that stuck out to me the most is that this is the first Melissa McCarthy movie that I've seen where her size isn't used as a gag. Like they're not making jokes at the expense of her body and her weight. And I'm just glad that she's able to find roles like this one.
I think that she's an extraordinary actress. I think that she's like one of those, comedians. Comedians can take the temperature of a room. Yeah. They know.
And this is not a comedy.
Right.
This is a drama. Yeah.
I'm so, because I love her. To me, she's Suki St. James from Gilmore Girls, who is a silly character, but also an extremely dynamic and complicated woman, an entrepreneur. Yeah. So I'm excited to get to see her in this other context.
Me too. And I won't even begin to know what it's like to be a bigger person who has to worry about society and how it views me and shames me or whatever. I won't, but I can't relate to that. But I can relate to understanding that I don't like seeing other people be mean to other people. Like I know what that's like. I don't want that. And so when I see people, even when the movies that she's in, when they're doing fat jokes or they're doing, sight gags or physical gags because of her size. And granted, she signs the contract and maybe she's comfortable enough to do the movie knowing that these are in the script. But for me as an audience member, it pains me to see that people are laughing at her because of that. And so the fact that she's able to do this movie and it's a drama and it has nothing to do with her being big or goofy or anything like that. It's a very emotional and human story. And so I'm really excited for the film, and I'm really just excited for her to be able to have a role that doesn't look at her physical attributes and just looks at her as an actor. So that's something that stuck out to me. After the break, When we come back, we're going to do our review cast because my third trip to the movie theater this week was for John Krasinski's directorial, not a debut because he's directed before, but John Krasinski's new film starring Emily Blunt, and that is A Quiet Place. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, with our review cast for A Quiet Place. Yay! Starring John Krasinski and Emily Blunt.
What a cute couple.
Yes, they are.
IRL and fictional.
That's right.
It's going to be sad when they break up. Oh, no. Hollywood, keep them together.
Well, Channing Tatum and Jenna
I
do.
know.
Damn.
Brad's excited. Channing Tatum
Oh,
back
he's
on the
back
market.
on the market. Yeah.
Like that mattered to him anyway.
that Brad, what a predator.
But we digress. The new film. So, do we do a spoiler warning? Because
yes.
Yeah, we always.
I'm
going to
spoil the shit out of this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, watch.
Well,
the
let's
film.
first say that we liked it. Didn't we like it?
Loved it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Loved
really enjoyed it. So now you can give the spoiler warning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen A Quiet Place, please do yourself a favor and go check it out in a theater, and one with a really good sound system. I saw this shit in Dolby Prime. Oh my goodness! So if you have a good sound system,
That sounds horrible.
it is. Go see this film because we want to spoil it, and then come back and listen to the review cast. All right, disclaimer out of the way. A family is forced to live in silence while hiding from something that hunts by sound. I had this spoiled for me about a week before I saw the film.
What spoiled?
The alien thing. I didn't know that they were aliens until about a week
I
ago.
think that's kind of like a moot point, though.
Yeah.
Like, it could have been an alien. It could have been like some kind of monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I think that the interesting thing is that this is an alien invasion film, and an alien invasion has happened.
Yeah.
And there are it isn't explicitly documented in the film. There are bits and pieces in the background, newspaper clippings and things like that fill you in on what could have possibly transpired before we meet these characters.
But
in the
it's
film.
global. It's not just this one spot. It's happening all over the planet.
Correct. And so the movie has a brilliant cold opening, and it doesn't let up from there. There's a setup in after the opening of the film where, because these things hunt by sound, no dialogue is spoken. One of the children is actually deaf, and so the family signs to communicate. And there are safeguards in place so they can traverse their land and also go into the town or whatever without making sound. And so there are little details that are put in place to really fill in this world and this situation the circumstance that we find these characters in, which I found really enjoyable. So let's do this. We're going to do it like we did it last time. We're going to do the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to go around and we're going to talk about the good things first that we liked about the film. Brian, you really love the film, and this is surprising for someone who doesn't really like scary movies or movies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really necessarily see it as like a horror film. More so as more like like you say, like an alien, kind of more like a thriller, so to speak. But I love the concept from seeing the initial trailers, so it always got my attention for being something different. That I felt like was pushing the genre forward, whether it be a horror thriller, or whatever the case is with how you want to specify this movie, categorize this film. But there's so much I love about this film, and I'm not even sure where to start. I'll just give you some of my points of what I loved about the film. You talked about the cold opening, and I think the cold opening was a great beginning to kind of set up not just the threat of the aliens, but also set up the family dynamic of the characters. Yeah. And the family dynamic, not just between, which I think is probably one of the biggest ones for me, was between the daughter and the father. The daughter played by Melissa Simmons, who is deaf in real life, which I thought was just fascinating to bring her on board to really kind of help with a lot of the
solid move.
Yeah.
In terms of representation,
it pays off.
having a person with with who is deaf, play a deaf person.
And
nobody can do it better.
and play such a huge part in the story.
A huge part.
Yeah, big deal.
So that cold opening was awesome, man, because you really set up from the opening of this film when they're in that pharmacy or in that convenience store. They're searching for medicine because the son is sick. And another thing I want to point out is, I mean, it's so much I love the use of sound. And like when this movie opens up, like it brings you as an audience member into the film, because it's almost like as an audience member watching this, you're staying silent as well, because you want to grasp what's happening on screen. And
it forces you to pay attention.
It forces you to pay attention. So it's like when you hear other people making noise. And I saw it twice because I tried to go see Blockers, but it was sold out. So I said, fuck it, let me just go see this again. So I saw it twice. I saw it again yesterday. And that was the perfect audience to see it with. And not saying that my first experience wasn't. The first experience was great, but there were some kids. And, you know, kids
They're the worst.
with a horror film.
They shouldn't be allowed in the movies.
You know, and they want to laugh because it diffuses the scares and
whatnot.
whatnot.
But they should really just be rolled into traffic.
Yeah, really.
She's not talking about you, Sia. She's talking about the other
She's
kids.
the exception.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, you really get, and we'll get into spoilers, but I just want to just say the cold opening with the threats, the family dynamic, the way they really kind of build this world out as far as like how they have to stay silent, like the way they eat dinner, like putting dinner on like leaves of lettuce instead of using a plate, you know, going to the top of that tower and lighting a fire and seeing all the other houses or families that also have fires lit to see how big this whole thing is and who else is surviving in this world. The use of sign language, everything that we get, I just thought was just brilliantly done by John Krasinski. Is the way he was able to execute and craft this story, was just awesome. So there's so much. I'm sure we'll get into more of it, but there's so much I love about this film.
What about you, Lisa?
I too am in love with the premise of this film,
yeah,
and how it heightens your senses.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's a lot of reasons, like the fact that they cannot use their voice. You know, like the human voice, we use it to find each other. We use it to alleviate our pain. We use it to express our suffering.
Yeah.
You know, it's an alarm system for when shit's going wrong. And when you have to tamp that down, like all of that shit just builds up like a gasket.
It does. The way they build that tension is just...
I think just the way, and then it's just a matter of managing that suspense.
Yeah.
And it's done just like supremely well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in another thing that I thought really created a lot of suspense was the nail.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because when you see her taking the laundry up and then you see the nail, and the way the camera focuses on it, you know it's going to come back.
Yeah, and then you're like, every time everybody zips up and down the stairs, you're just like...
And that's the crazy thing about it, because pain like that results in an audible response.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that when that happens, when she goes into labor, that's already one source of pain. And then she steps on the nail. For her to have the wherewithal to remain silent when your initial reaction is to yell, it's just... And,
you know, that energy, that pain is going to come out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not being able to make that sound makes the pain worse. Yeah. And we know it as an audience member.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
You're not going to say it, so I'm going to say it. Opening a movie by killing a kid is fucking ballsy.
Ooh, so
it's ballsy.
They set a tone right there to
Yeah.
let you know, like, shit is going to go down in this film. When you kill a kid in the opening of the film.
You know, it's like when you watch a horror movie, you know, even like, it's just like, well, all of the tiny people will make it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like, the fact that right off the bat, the stakes are just like, go through the roof.
And it doesn't feel gratuitous. There's a purpose for another character for that death. Well, not necessarily a purpose. It affects a character and their decisions and things that happen later on in the film. There's a payoff.
But that's the thing I love about the film, is that it affects the whole family. That the whole family is riddled with guilt as far as like what happened to their son. Like the character Regan, the daughter, she feels responsible for it.
Right.
because she took the toy away, or well, she gave it back to him. The father, of course, feels responsible. And then like that scene between Emily Blunt and John Krasinski when they're down in the basement, she's like, I could have carried him. And you know, it's like, so they all. I love how they all have this sense of guilt for the loss of their brother or their son.
And even the brother has a sense of guilt because now he cannot close the gap between his sister and his father, and he feels himself being favored in a way that he does not want. And he's being pushed in a direction that he does not want to go. And he knows that his sister would do better.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great. I loved the kind of cliffhanger ending. I just thought that was like a tremendous use of momentum.
Yep.
You know, like the fact that it just like you go like, okay, let's do this. We've got the solution. Let's do this. And that's how the movie ends. And then you're just kind of like, it just pushes you out of the theater. You're just lighter than air.
It is, because watching the film, because it's a brisk 90 minutes, you know, especially for a tense-filled movie. It goes by. But because of this world, watching the film, I was like, this just feels like it's going to have a dour ending. Like, I just don't know how they could survive in this world. And we know from, again, the clippings of the news and then the writings on the whiteboards that we see in the basement that there's 3 of these monsters in this immediate area. So when they take out that one, and that ending with when she grabs the microphone and you see Emily Blunt just cock that shotgun, it's just so badass, and it's just such a visceral ending that it does leave the audience in a state of kind of like, I don't want to say a feel-good state, but just like, that's, you know.
Triumph.
Yeah.
And also an anticipatory state, because you oh shit, I want more. Like, it's going to be so awesome, whatever happens next.
But I love that ending. I love that ending. That was awesome.
I was surprised by that ending, but it fucking hit. It was awesome. It was really good. Yeah. What else you got?
I have some other stuff, but I think I'll save it.
You sure?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to go to the performances. Performances I thought were great. I guess 2 other points I just wanted to make as far as the good. I don't have a lot of bad, but 2 more points I want to make on the good is John Krasinski's sacrifice. I thought was just absolutely fantastic. And because there's 2 dialogue scenes. The one with him and his son by the waterfall, and then, of course, with him and Emily Blunt down in the basement after he rescues her from giving birth. And the scene that he has with his son at the waterfall, where they're talking about what happened to the son that died, you know, he says, like, his son asks, he's like, do you blame her? Or he's like, she blames herself. It's like, well, do you love her? He says, well, of course I do. He's like, well, you should tell her.
Oh, God,
and I could, and like, it just gets me every time. So it's just like, I can understand, like, the fact that how she feels, not feeling like she has that love from her father and always kind of pushing him away. Then at that moment when he has to make that sacrifice and he looks at her and says, look, I love you. I've always loved you. And he gives out that guttural yell and sacrifices himself. So that
even now, like, I'm getting
I've seen it twice, and it brought me to tears both times. It's such a powerful scene, and the way they set it up. Again, 2 dialogue scenes. You set it up throughout the whole film, but that conversation that he has with his son, and you understand the relationship between him and his daughter and where that leads to, and also going to this conversation he has with Emily Blunt. It's like, who are we if we can't protect them?
Right.
It's just so good.
It, like from that scene, you go, well, that's the nail poking up of the sore of this relationship and the wound at the center of this relationship, and you're just waiting for that resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Emily Blunt's performance, just her giving birth. I mean, this.
Okay.
I just want to say, like, her performance, just as far as, like, you could really feel the pain. Like, I'm a man. I've never been pregnant. Never will. Haven't given birth. But the way she performs that, like, I could feel that pain. I've had a kidney stone twice. So it's just like, I could barely remain silent. So, I mean, I would die in this world. But man, like, her performance, I could just feel that pain she was going through, and that's just a credit to her.
And it was a real ugly pain. It was
Yes.
ugly.
The way she's just like trying to breathe,
contorting and.
So yeah, that was good. That was really good.
What about you, Darren? What was your good?
I like all the performances were exceptional. I love the opening for everything that you all said, and again, like going back to what you mentioned, the concept of it for me is what I love the most about the film. The first trailer for A Quiet Place is probably one of the best trailers that I've seen within the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah,
like, it's a mini. Basically, the movie is a 90-minute version of that trailer, and you don't get everything in that trailer. But I just mean in explaining that concept, and then having this built-in, this built-in suspense with using things that we're familiar with. That's another thing that I love about the film is that we are familiar with the concept of a painful childbirth. We understand that, a childbirth is painful. So that very first shot, when it's revealed that Emily Blunt's character is pregnant, when the camera pans up and you see her stomach and she touches it, for me, as soon as that happens, I go, oh shit. Mm-hmm. That's going to be bad later on in the third act or second act of this movie because she's going to want to scream. They're going to hear it. Then when the baby comes, the baby's going to cry.
Yeah.
Like,
what are you going to even do with that thing?
What are you going to do with that thing? Yeah, so just seeing that automatically was like, oh,
Raise
shit.
the stakes.
Yeah, raises the stakes.
Yeah.
The nail. So they have places in the home where there's a hardwood floor. So when you go in the house, they've marked on the floor, take a paintbrush and just made these marks on the floor where you can step that you won't make a sound, but the floor won't creak. So when the camera pans down those stairs and that nail has that paint around it, that's a point in the steps where they are going to have to step. I go, she's going to step on that. She's going to make a sound. Something bad's going to happen. The fact that you can't make noise and you can't speak. We're familiar with, like you said, Lisa, the concept of communication and talking and being vocal to just regular communicate, to express ourselves and things like that. And having that, used against us. So, if someone wants to say something or if a noise is made, whether it's by accident or, being vocal, that's going to be bad. So they set up these things, and just normal day-to-day, like in the beginning, in the opening, when she's grabbing the pill bottle, I'm afraid for her to touch the pill bottle because I know when you shake a pill bottle, it's going to make noise. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So just so many different things that are nothing that's fantastical or that's created to, artificial. I mean, all these are real things. These are real world things that we do and come into contact with on a day-to-day basis. That labor sequence, how that starts off. She's in labor. She's in pain. She already stepped on the nail at that point, and she's in the bathtub, and the sun has to go out, and that whole sequence is great because not only are you dealing with her and the fact that her husband is away, she's alone in there. The daughter has gone off to the site where her brother was killed. And then the brother is tasked with going to set off these fireworks to distract the creatures, the aliens, and just the tension and all of that, and her being in that tub, and it got to the point where, like you said, that pain is going to come out, and it got to the point where it was so bad that she could not hold it in, and she was being strong. She was being She was being stronger than strong. Up until that point. And the fact that it was that bad that it had to come out. And if her son had not set those fireworks off,
right on time.
It would have. And so just the tension in that sequence was amazing. I mentioned earlier, if you could see this, see it in Dolby Prime. So, I saw it in Dolby Prime, and not only do you have like the loudness of Dolby Prime, but you got the subwoofers in the seat. So when those creatures were stepping in the house, boom, boom, like you felt it. And then that juxtaposed with the silence of the people in the house. Yeah. And the only thing you have is ambient sound. Again, the silence draws out. It makes the contrast that much more when you finally hear a sound. And normal sounds became almost jump scares in the film.
When they knock over the
thing.
kerosene lamp.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
it was like a bomb went off.
Yeah, it sounds like a car crash when that kerosene lamp goes over when he knocks it over. It sounds like a car crash,
and the seats shake. So it's almost equivalent to like if you're watching something on TV, Brian. Just using an example, and you see a spider, and if I were to touch you at the moment you see the spider, the subwoofer in the seat, whenever there's a loud sound going off, it jolts you along with the sound, the audio experience, and it was really impressive. And then you have the audience reacting to the film the way you want to them to respond. They're responding and hitting all the right beats. So like that, the sound design coupled with the concept, I think was just extraordinary. It really added to the experience of watching the film. The waterfall scene between the father and the son. Yeah. What I got from that scene was that thing when you're a kid and your parent is saying just do this or just try this, but you as a kid you're afraid. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do it because you have whatever fear that you have it all worked out in your head. I don't want to do this because if I do, this could happen, whatever. And the father's saying, just yell, like they're not going to hear you. Yeah. But the kid's saying no. And that thing about the parent, see ya, just trust me. I know what I'm talking. Just trust me.
Brian,
it's not going to be as bad.
Eat a scone.
Right?
It's carbs are fine.
And then having the child do it and go, oh, okay, like my dad was right. Yeah. And I identify with that. Mm-hmm. I love that. Like that was a thing, again, that it was something that is built into it that I can relate to, but it was with the character. And then just him both of them getting to yell after about 40 minutes of no one being able to speak and them having to stifle or suppress their voice. It was a relief. It was almost like a relief just to get to see. It made me smile that the boy was getting to, open his lungs. And so, I don't know, I thought that was something simple, but that payoff was because just of the concept of not being able to talk. Yeah. And so I really appreciated that. And then, it's just an interesting take on an invasion film, I think. It's not on an Independence Day blowing up the White House level. It is very almost like 10 Cloverfield Lane.
It's very focused.
It's drawn in, and it's about what about while Independence Day is going on in Washington, what about these people like in the Midwest and in Missouri or whatever?
And it just drops you in too. Like I said, the movie starts 89, I think 79 or 89 days in, and it's just like. And I know a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, I wanted some more backstory as far as how this happened."
Boo to those people.
You don't need it, And the movie works more effectively without having that. Just being dropped in at this moment in the story, I think it's just it makes that movie that much more tighter.
Independence Day is an example. Resurgence, right? You have these big special effects, these big ships, this really complicated plot. Let's go over to fly up to this thing. Let's do this. You're going all over the place. But like, do you connect with or carry yourself through that film with any of those characters? Yeah. Right? With this film is the antithesis to that. Like, we don't worry about how they got here. We just worry about how do these people survive.
Right.
And you care about the people.
Yeah, and you care about the people. And so I really appreciated that. John Krasinski, this is my last point of good. As a director, his direction of the film, I think, was phenomenal. I'm really impressed with his work behind the camera in this film.
To me, it just feels like tremendously personal. Like John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, their parents, and everything that's happening nowadays, and where are we going as a society, as a country? Like, to me, like this movie is like just a meditation on the sacrifices you'll make to create normalcy for your kids.
That part when she says, when she wakes up and she's like, where are the kids? And he's like, they're out there, I'll find them, but they know what to do.
We've prepared them.
That's like, all right, Sia goes out the door to school in the morning. She walks to school or takes the bus. Like, I have no control over anything that happens at that point. I have to know that I've taught her everything she needs to know to the best of her ability to make sure she walks in that door at 4:30 in the evening. You know what I'm saying? Right. Being out, and so it feels like that's exactly what that feels like.
It's been it gets to the point where it's been a year. where they've been under this threat.
Yeah.
And they have textbooks open, and the kid is learning math.
Yeah.
And
I thought about that
they're
during that
creating
scene.
art, and
Trying to
they're
create some
trying
sense
to
of
live
normalcy. Yeah.
live their lives. And to me, like, you know, we've had this conversation many times. Like, if the apocalypse happens, I volunteer to go first. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, they're like, ooh, there's a sound monster outside. Everybody keep it down. I'd be outside with a pot and pan going like, take me now. I cannot take the suspense. but because they have these little people who are entrusted to them, and their entire existence is going like, I am here to show these kids that there is a future, and that there is something worth surviving for, and you're learning algebra so that you can survive and what happens after this. And I'm going to give you a cochlear implant. We're going to find one that works because it's worth having because this is a life worth living.
Yeah.
And the way that I looked at that, Lisa, and I agree with what you're saying, but the way that I looked at that that scene where she's still teaching him, she's homeschooling him or teaching him algebra or whatever. The way I looked at that, again, because I'm such a huge, I'm so into psychology, I looked at that as, you know, to stay sane, you do the thing that you know and you're accustomed to, because you can't talk, so there's no normalcy there. You can't just run out and get in the car, drive down to the store, get some pills for your son. Yeah. So there's no normalcy there. But in here, I can at least make this feel normal by let's continue schooling. And so for me, I just find it interesting in what we do under situations of duress like that as humans psychologically to maintain a sense of sanity and normalcy. But it also does, whether it be inadvertently or whatever, whether she told him this is why we're going to do this, but it gives them this, it's teaching them, hope. Because maybe one day it won't be like this. So let me prepare you for that.
Exactly.
But that also goes to parenting. See, one day I'm not going to be here, so let me prepare you for that.
Right.
And so I don't know. That's a real interesting observation.
Yeah.
All right, B. The BAD.
The bad. Like I said, I love this movie. It's one of my favorites of the year so far. Maybe my favorite movie so far this year. But I gave it 4.5 on Letterboxd. I guess if I had to point out anything bad, and of course there are some nitpicky things, but I don't really want to focus too much because I think then we kind of lose some of the greatness of what this movie has to offer. But I think there are some jump scares that they use that aren't really, I don't want to call them cheap jump scares, because I think they do have some jump scares in this film that are earned. But there are a couple of times in this movie, especially like just playing with the audience and the silence, like on the roof when the gophers or something fall
the raccoons.
from the roof, the raccoons fall. It's like, okay. And then when the daughter wants to go into the basement and then her father comes and pulls her back. Oh yeah. The way they frame that, it's like a jump. So there's a couple times where I'm just like, okay, like we don't need the cheap jump scare.
I agree.
But there are some, like I said, some jump scares that I feel like were really, really earned in this film. Outside of that, I've heard people snicker about, why would you get pregnant during this time? I mean, people are human, It's like maybe his pullout game wasn't great. I don't know. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know, but. I mean,
it goes back to what I was saying. I can't do all this other normal stuff, but I got my wife here. I can lay with her, and then look, love and a beautiful woman or a man make you do some crazy shit.
They had a whole pharmacy to themselves.
Exactly. And my whole point too was like when I saw that scene at the waterfall, I thought they put a plan together because they had when her due date was, because if there's a sound louder than the sound that they have, they could have took her out to the waterfall to
I think that's why they were making the soundproof room.
Yeah.
Was the soundproof room was ultimately for her to give birth in and just, like in the apocalypse ship.
So I think they were making some safeguards for that. But I mean, I remember.
I think it's part of the normalcy.
Yeah.
It's just we're a family. We're growing our family.
Exactly. You my wife, you fine, you look good. She like, yo, I like that beard.
I'm just just saying, if she didn't want to have children, like there were lots of options, so clearly she was open to it.
You're right. I mean, Emily Blunt.
Her body, her choice. People.
Yeah.
She wants to make people in the apocalypse,
and they lost a son, so maybe
they needed a replacement. There is a hole.
Yeah, I get that one too. But what I'm saying is maybe that was, because some people do that in real life. Some people do that.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean,
so
that could have been.
It's not far fetched.
No, and I didn't really have an issue. I just knew. I remember hearing, like you say, with that reveal when you see her belly, I could hear some people kind of snickering. And
no, I totally did. I was like, really? Really?
That was Lisa in your theater.
Jay, Cray, get your shit together.
Hey, she couldn't resist that. That was a pretty massive beard. That beard does look kind of sexy.
That's right. I think he's dreamy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
He has soulful eyes.
Yeah. So yeah, but those are really the only bad that I could come away with from this film.
Yeah. What about you, Lisa?
I was a little disappointed in the weakness aspect. Like every monster has to have like this kind of weird kryptonite.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that that's a little bit of a cliche. I think I like the fact that that Reagan was part of the solution, and but I think that there were other ways besides just speaking sign language that she could have been made an asset other than like this piece of her that was not a piece of her. Okay. But the symbol as it being this thing from her father, I think was good. Yeah. I don't like the fact that like the entire rules of the universe were written on a whiteboard. Like when they're like, like he's got in like perfect handwriting. Oh. There's 3 left. Oh yeah. Don't make any sound. Like weakness? ? I'm just like. Yeah. I'm like, we got it. Yeah. We got it. We don't need it all like spelled out for us.
Yeah.
On a whiteboard. Or if you're gonna I understand we all take note. Like I'm a huge note taker, but you wouldn't just spell it out like that. Like in Act 1, it might as well have just said, "Son's dead, daughter's distant, weakness." Yeah. So I thought that like we could have figured it out without the whiteboard.
Do something about the nail on the step.
Nail? Yeah. And every time, like after that, I'm like, how come the monster doesn't step on the nail? That would have been hilarious. His little crab foot, like just stepping on the nail. Ow. Like nobody else stepped on the nail. Yeah. Not one other person.
Yeah. Well, it did say that on that whiteboard it said armor. So maybe they have like maybe their skin. Yeah,
they did. There was something like crustaceous about him.
Yeah. I love the design though. I love the design of the aliens.
Oh yeah,
I thought
me
that
too.
Was pretty.
They were really cool.
Yeah,
that scene.
ILM.
Did they?
I don't know. I don't know if they did. I don't know if they did the visual effects.
It was impressive because that scene when it was in the corner when she was in the water started filling up in the basement.
Oh yeah,
and it comes out of the corner and goes under the water. Like,
ooh, that is like one that's like one of my things. Like in Star Wars when they've got the like little things slithering the swamp, or like when they're in the trash compactor. I do not like shit touching my legs.
Yeah. Man, that one moment, it's not even really a jump scare when they're in the water and she goes and picks up the baby, and at the exact motion that she picks up the baby, he sticks his head from out the water at the same time. It was like. Yeah. Man, it was woo.
All right, Zach, what else you got for bad, Lisa?
Oh, that's it.
All right. For me, didn't really think about the stuff that you mentioned, but I agree, I concur. But
it is made by ILM. Boom, nice. Boom. Boom.
That's really good because you could have said Weta. So
that's
good. Okay, Lisa. All right. Okay. I am not a fan of John Krasinski's death.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I've been thinking about it, and I don't know if it's because he did such a good job in that role as the father that I'm mad because he died because I didn't want him. I liked him as a father, and I wanted him there with the kids.
Yeah.
But a part of me wishes, like you, Lisa, you don't like the weakness thing, and you wish they would have found another way to make the daughter useful and impactful. I kind of wish that they would have found another way
for him to go down swinging.
Not even that, but for him to convey the message that he was trying to convey to his daughter, because I saw that coming like earlier on in him. It was something he said or did, and I was like, "Oh shit, man, he's gonna die. He's gonna sacrifice himself for the kids." And then that's when she's gonna be like, "Oh, I wish I wouldn't have dipped to my dad, or he loves me." I saw that coming earlier, so I kind of felt like that was cliche to me, and the only reason why I have issue with that is because like everything that we said that was good, in how they open the movie cold, and we're 89 days in, and they're not spoon feeding us stuff, and he's doing all of these things right, so that when there's one or two things that I felt like he did wrong, it sticks out to me. And again, and I'm not saying that this ruins the movie by no means, because that scene is a powerful scene. Because when he's telling her that, I'm choking up, and I'm still, I'm bothered. But and that makes me think: is it just because he was a great dad, he played that role, and I like the dad, so maybe that's why I don't like it? Because I was emotionally affected and moved by that scene. Yeah. But at the same time, I still wish that maybe there was another. They went about that in a different way, because again, I saw that coming.
I mean, like I said, because I felt watching the film that it was going to have some type of a dour or morbid ending. I just felt like I just don't know how this film can end on a good note. Watching the film, I said, somebody in this family, outside of the kid that dies in the opening, somebody else is going to die. And then, of course, it made sense for it to be the father of the family, for him to sacrifice himself. And because of the family dynamic with everything that happened, it just made sense. And
the film also tries to redirect you, too, because right before that, the conversation he has with Emily Blunt, when she's like, you got to promise me that you're going to protect him. I was like, oh, man, what, is she going to die and leave the kids to him? And then he's going to have to, is that why she's making him make that promise? So I thought that her saying that she was going to die as well. But yeah, when there was I can't remember what the conversation was or what scene it was, but there was something that happened or that was said that made me anticipate him being the one that was going to die later on. But again, having said that, the emotional beat hits, it works, and more so that gets us to the kids back to the house so we can get that ending in the basement. Yeah. And that was just so boss. That was so badass.
That was great.
And I got a head explosion, even though it wasn't a human. I got a head explosion, so you know me, I'm good. Yeah. But I really love the fact that there was the thing that her father gave her that she was resistant towards initially, but it was something that ended up being good for her. Yeah. And kind of like mirrors the thing with the son and the waterfall. Look, trust me, this is not going to be bad for you. I wouldn't tell you to do something that would hurt you or be bad for you. You have to trust me as a parent. And that's something that a parent, me personally speaking, that's a real thing that you have to wrestle with your child, is you have to overcome. Sometimes you have to help your child overcome certain fears when it regards to you, or you have to be there to push them or when they do it, so you can say, see, I won't mislead you. I won't steer you wrong. You have to, if you don't trust or believe in anything else, just believe that daddy has your best interest in heart always. But outside of that, like, I don't really have, that's really the only thing I have of my notes. Yeah. So now the ugly.
I mean, not really too much ugly. I mean, I guess
you maybe
the
creature was pretty.
Well, no. I mean, well, that's my point that I want to make is like the creature design. If we're going to talk about this part of our review, as far as the ugly, I want to focus more so on the creature design. And we talked about it a little bit as far as like I like the design of the creatures, just like with them having like the 4 legs and being able to walk, and then they could stand on their hind legs. The design that they don't have eyes, but like their head kind of opens up when they hear sound, and how their ears open up, and how they're able to hear, and then like those just teeth that they have. Man. And so I thought it was an interesting way, and I heard too that John Krasinski changed the design of those creatures at the last minute. There was a different design that they had for the movie, and I think maybe up to like a month or 2 ago he changed the design, because there was a conversation where they were talking about how people are constantly just working on films, up until the release. Like, these movies aren't like magic in the bottle. Like, they come up with an idea and they get it right at the first time. They're constantly working to really perfect the film, and that he's been working on this film up until literally like maybe a month or so ago, and he changed the design of the creatures like at the last minute. So I thought that was interesting. So I just thought everything worked with how they presented the monsters in this film.
You have to describe to the listeners your thoughts when that creature's head opened up. What you like?
I described it to like Masters of the Universe. If anybody has seen like that instrument in Masters of the Universe,
the cosmic key.
Yeah, it kind of has like the hectagon shape and the way like the sound, and it opened his head's kind of. I mean, people can't see me. I'm moving my hands, but it's like his head opens up. I don't know. Maybe that's just my weird thinking. It made me think of like that little instrument in Masters of the Universe.
That is actually perfect.
When Brian drew that comparison, I was like, "What? That's a
Yeah, I
give him his geek cred though. That's
it's
reference
just
Masters of the Universe. All right, I dig it.
That's what it reminded me of.
All right, Lisa, you're ugly.
I thought
You're ugly. You're not ugly. You're the ugly
I know
in the
I'm
film
not
team.
I thought that there was something grossly gynecological about the inside of that monster's ear.
Yeah.
And like how it would like open up and like quiver, and there are like these like weird ear secretions.
Yeah, it did get kind of gooey.
It was mildly it was very erotic, I guess. I don't know. I thought that was pretty ugly. And also I found it ugly when Brad was like, "Do you know what that movie could have used more of?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "The birthing scene."
Oh, wow.
He was just like, he wanted it to go all the way.
Wow.
He wanted to see people leaving Emily Blunt.
Oh, okay.
I was just like, he's like, I thought that was quite ugly of him.
Huh.
Yeah.
I thought that what we got was just enough.
Yeah,
I could fill in the gaps.
yeah, that worked
Baby
for me.
pop out, crawl to shower.
Yeah. The only ugly for me would be the actual creature, because that motherfucker was ugly.
Yeah.
But a unique creature design. Again, I've talked about on the podcast. I'm always interested in different takes on aliens, and while this one still, I wouldn't say necessarily had a humanoid.
Got a head, has a mouth,
It does, and
leggies.
it was able to stand up on its hind legs. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's that. But with the concept of its hearing and it opening up and being able to protect the soft tissue underneath, its whole entire head is like a tympanic membrane, which is nuts. But again, it makes sense, and it falls in line with the concept and how everyone else outside of the film is behaving. Not outside of the film, but except the alien. All the people are behaving. So when you see the alien, you understand why they're acting the way they're acting. So I appreciated that. But yeah,
what
it was
about
ugly.
the suicide scene? I almost forgot.
Oh, the old guy?
That old guy. Oh, that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, especially if that was his wife who died, and he feels like maybe he has no reason to live.
Absolutely not. He has no reason to live.
So he just said, I'm just going.
I'm tapping out.
Yeah.
You could wait until the woods are clear. Like, that was a little rude.
I know. It could. I mean, if you want to commit suicide, that's fine, but at least be considerate.
Yeah.
Let me get my son out of here, please, and myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's our thoughts on A Quiet Place. Brad liked it, Lisa?
He did.
Okay.
Clean sweep, I think, of the Inmod crew.
Yeah, I think I saw him on
Inmod
Letterboxd.
approved.
He gave 3.5.
All right.
Yeah.
Hit us up on social media, ladies and gentlemen, and then let us know your thoughts. Brian, what do you got coming up?
Oh, this week. I do want to see Blockers. I'm looking forward to Rampage. I'm assuming that's going to be our review cast.
Is that this week?
Yeah.
What
that's
is
this
it?
week.
That's going to be a review cast?
Yeah, that comes out on the 13th. So I'm looking forward to that. I love that video game in the arcades as a kid. So I'm looking forward to seeing.
I never played it.
Really? Oh, you know Rampage, though.
I know it.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. And I don't know, man. Just maybe doing some Netflix stuff and some other things. But geek stuff, that's probably what I'm looking forward to.
We're just biding time until Infinity War.
Yeah.
Basically, at this point in our lives, we're just,
I know,
just
right?
biding our time.
I
What
know.
about you, Wife Dork?
I don't know. In terms of films, there's nothing really that coming up that I'm
Unfortunately,
all
yeah.
too excited about. But I'll be doing more baking.
Yay!
I'm going to be making Florentines next.
Nice.
And posting that on my Bake Dork blog at the Bake Dork blog. .wordpress.com. And that's really it. Not exciting. I just let my dork weeks unfold. I don't anticipate a lot.
With the flow.
Yeah, it's very zen. I'm very present.
I can dig it. I'm looking forward to your next batch of baked goodness. Yeah. I can't say I'm really looking forward to Rampage. I'm going to go see it. Hopefully, it's a fun movie. I have no not necessarily anticipate. I don't have any anticipation. But I have no expectations from it. So hopefully it's an enjoyable film. It looks like it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to check that out. But other than that, like I said, I'm just biding my time until Avengers Infinity War. That thing is coming, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're ready or not. Again, you can follow the podcast at ItModcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can follow Brian at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Wife Dork is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and also Bake Dork on Twitter. And Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until